are rich.
Right, so God said he knows the tribulations that the real Jews are going through in these last days. Right, he knows the poverty. But he tells us we are rich. God's claim to be the real Jews today are the synagogue of Satan, are the chief house of Satan, the deceiver himself. Right? Read what you got, brother.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, and verse 4. Read. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage, right? I gave thee.
So like, read it from me out.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, and verse 4.
Come on, read.
And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage.
Right? So the Israelites, it is prophesied in the Bible, the Israelites were going to be, with their heritage, their culture, their knowledge of self was going to be taken away by God. Read.
That I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not.
Right, so the real Jews, right, they're prophesied to serve their enemies in the last days, not have their salvation. So how is the so-called Caucasian the real Jew? Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans need to wake up to their true history, their real culture. Sisters, you guys are not black, you're not Haitian, you're not Jamaican. All right, you're the real Jews, you're real queens of this earth. You gotta wake up and act like it, sis. Read on, brother.
And I will cause thee to serve thy enemies.
So like, read it again for these sisters real quick. Read it again.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, and verse 4.
Hey, sister, listen up real quick. This is the Bible talking. All right, this is God talking. Read.
And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee.
Right, so this scripture is talking about the real Jew right now. Talking about how they were going to lose their heritage. Brother in the red. Brother with the do-rag. How is the real Jew, the so-called Caucasian, when he is not going through anything right now? He's never been in slavery throughout his whole history that we know of him. The real Jews in the Bible went through slavery in ships. How is he the real Jew who never been through that? Read.
And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not.
Right, once again, the real Jews are going to be serving their enemies in the last days. Right, which they knew not. Before they came over here and took the Indian slavery, the so-called Native American Indians, so-called Puerto Rican, right? Before they were in slavery, they did not know what language the white man spoke. Right? They spoke the language of the Jews, which is the so-called Hebrew. Which is the Hebrew language. Right? Read on.
For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, right, which shall burn forever.
So the reason, brother in the black with the Chicago hat, the reason our people went in slavery is because we disobeyed God. Alright, God is not a fairy tale story you tell him in the schools, in church. He's very real. Alright, read on.
Thus saith the Most High, cursed be the man that trusteth in man.
Right, good job there. Give me Deuteronomy 28. Read that for me out.
This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, verse 20.
Read.
Wisdom crieth without.
Right, wisdom, the true knowledge and understanding of this Bible, the knowledge and understanding of who you really are, so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American, is crying out, and you don't even want to hear it. You don't even want to hear the truth of who you are. You rather hear from your cool master eating pork and claiming he's a Christian. How you Christ-like and you eat pork? Christ did not eat pork. How you a follower of so-called Jesus Christ and he did not even eat pork? He taught in the synagogues where the Jews dwelt, keeping the Sabbath day, which you guys do not do in the Christian religion, made by a European man. How are you Christ-like? You are not, you're a lie. Come out of that lie and come back to the true ethnicity of yourself. Read, brother. Hey, brother in the gray hat, can I talk to you real quick? 2 seconds? 2 minutes? 30 seconds, please? 2 seconds, brother. I'm happy you did that. I'll pay some more time, man. How long you got?
I got 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Where's your father from?
Huh?
Where's your father from?
My father, Mexican.
Mexican. Okay, you know the history about Mexico? Yeah, tell me something. Tell me some history you know.
You know, we used to own Texas, California.
Okay, alright, that's some history. Do you know what you guys are calling yourself back in the 1600s? Alright, so you heard of Aztecs, the Aztecs before, right?
Yeah.
So that's your ancestors, right? Yeah. You know what language they were speaking? Dialect. See, the Americans call it an Indian language, right? The Indian language, you know, whatever language they want to call it, right? But they didn't say that, right? They were called Indians. They didn't call themselves Indians. If you do the real research, if you do the history, research about your people, about my people, right, we'll find that we were not calling ourselves Mexicans. We were not calling ourselves Indians. We were calling ourselves from the 12 tribes of Israel, right? You guys were calling yourself Issacharites. My people was calling themselves Ephraimites, right? They were calling themselves Benjamites, right? The land of Jamaica, they were calling themselves Benjamites. Your people were calling yourself from the people of Issachar, speaking Hebrew, as early back as the 1600s. You never knew that, huh? Do you know your people were in slavery also? Do you know your people, your ancestors were in slavery?
I'm
Sure
sure they were.
they were? They were, brother. The history is there. You could do it, right? You can find most of it on Google nowadays. You don't have to read the book no more, right? Give me Deuteronomy 28. Right? I'm going to prove something to you. I'm going to prove to you how we're the real Jews, right? You ever heard that before? That the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the real Jews the Bible talks about? I'm going to teach you something real quick then. According to our modern day history, according to biblical history, we are the real Jews. So-called Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Native American Indians are from the tribe of Reuben, Gad, Ephraim, right? We're not Hispanic, bro. We're not no Spaniard. The real Spaniard, right? They spoke Spanish, right? The real Spaniard is European, right? They never had a tan when they came to take our people in slavery in 1492. They didn't have a tan. They're Europeans, right? That's where they descend from. Read on Deuteronomy 28:1, right? So, our Mexican people, right? Your Mexicans going through the things on the border, right? With the ICE concentration camps, right? Why are people going through these things? Racism or curses, right? It's curses, brother. Things that God made happen to us. Come on, you can hold that. Things that God made happen to us because of our disobedience. We don't want to hear God's word. We don't want to come out of the churches from Christianity, being thugs in the street, being gangsters, wherever walk of life we came out of. We want to do wickedness, brother, right? We have to do otherwise. We can't be wicked no more. We have to come back to being righteous men of God, bringing our families up in righteousness, okay? Read that, brother.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 1.
Read.
And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations.
Right, so let's go back into the history of the Israelites. God is talking to the Israelites right now, right? He's telling them, if you observe to do all my commandments that I gave thee, I will set you up on high above every nation upon the earth. Nobody's going to be above you. You're going to be on top. Like how the so-called Caucasian man's on top today, right? Who is biblically, according to his history, the Edomite of the Bible. We were going to be on top of every nation, all right, if we kept his commandments. Give me 15 now.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 15.
Read.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses...
All these what?
All these curses...
Curses are good or bad thing?
Bad.
It's bad. It's never been good. Never in history curses has been good. Read.
Shall come upon thee,
right?
And overtake thee.
Okay, so give me 54. No, 48. Give me 68. Now you can read what you got. Go ahead.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 32.
Salaki, before you read. So now we're going into the curses that's happening to the Israelites, the real Jews, right? According to their history, because they didn't keep God's commandments, right? Read.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
Right? So why are we so light-skinned today, brother? As the so-called, right? Your ancestors being from the Aztecs, right? Your ancestors, my ancestors from the Tainos, right? You know, they were more of a dark-skinned people back then, right? Why are we so light-skinned today?
Well, from what I know, my ancestors, my grandpa was Spaniard.
Your grandfather was a Spaniard? Okay. Well, look, brother. If we believe in, do you believe in keeping God's commandments? Right? Because a lot of so-called Hispanics were sent back to Spain in slavery, right? So that's why a lot of us are so stuck in believing we're Spaniard today, right? You never know. If you believe in keeping God's commandments, brother, if you believe in keeping his laws and believe that you're a true Jew of God, you're not just nobody, then you might be a Jew, brother. If not, you might just be a heathen, brother. And the truth is not for you. Salvation is not for you. If so. Do you believe in keeping commandments?
I believe in the Ten Commandments.
Believe in the Ten Commandments. Do you believe in keeping them, actually doing them?
I mean, I try as best as I can. Yeah.
All right, but let me give you a couple things to do. Let me see how your spirit moves. Give me Leviticus.
I'm on.
All right, go ahead, brother. Okay. How you doing, brother? Where's your father from? Where's your father from? Mexico? Alright, so he was from Mexico too. Did you hear anything I was talking about with him? Alright, so what's your, you know your history about Mexico?
A little bit.
A little bit? So you guys, you descend from the Aztecs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Aztecs, right, they spoke what language? Spanish. That's false. You know, the so-called Caucasian man tells us they were, right? Or they were speaking an Indian language, right? I have history books, though, that prove otherwise, right? All those people in that set of lands, right, in the Caribbean islands, Mexico, that whole little spot of islands right there, all those people were speaking Hebrew. All those people were not speaking Spanish, right? The people that were called Indians, right? Those people were claiming to be from the tribes of the Israelite, I mean the Jews from the tribes of the Bible, right? You read the Bible? A little bit. Give me you're in Deuteronomy 28. Give me verse 1 again.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth.
Right, so God said, if we keep his commandments, right, brother? If the Israelites kept God's commandments, they will set them on high. You know about the Israelites in the Bible? Okay. Do you know that your people was in slavery? Never? Right? That's not in our history books, right? In history books in middle school, high school, it teaches that we come, the so-called Spanish people, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Honduran, we come from Spain. That's a lie, right? The original people did not come from Spain that was in that land, right? They are the so-called, they are the real Jews the Bible talks about, right? But I'm going to read you some curses that the Jews went through in the Bible, right? That was prophesied that they were going to go through the same thing in the last days, right? Who's a Jew today? Who would you think the Jews are today? You can't tell. Okay, so you ever seen the so-called Caucasian man walking with the all black, tall little hat with the curly hair? All right, so you know he calls himself a Jew, right? Okay, he claims to be a Jew today. The real Jews, according to the Bible, were black, and they were prophesied to go into slavery, right? They never been through slavery. And they're not black, right? They're not dark-skinned people. So how can they be the real Jews? The Bible prophesies that there is going to be a people claiming to be the real Jews in the last days. Do you believe we're in the last days? Right? By all the prophecies the Bible talks about. We are in the last days, brother. All right? It talks of where everything's happening that was prophesied in the Bible. Read on.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 1. Read. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, right, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth.
Right, so God is telling the Israelites right now, right, if they observe to do his commandments, right, he will set them above everybody. Give me verse 15, right? So, do you think they keep the commandments, the people who call themselves Jews today? No? Why do you think that? All right, well, they don't, because they don't understand the scriptures. They can't understand the scriptures because it wasn't given to them. It was given to the real Jews, right? They are not the real Jews according to their history. You and I, we're the real Jews. All these brothers here, we're the real Jews according to our history. Our people are speaking Hebrew, okay? Our history tells us we're the real Jews. So knowing that we're a real Jew, brother, we have to come back and act like it, all right? We're not Puerto Rican, we're not Hispanic, we're not Mexican. If you do the research about your history, it will tell you that. I'm gonna bring some more scriptures out on what the real Jews are going through, and this is what we're going through today, right? No other nation of people today is going through these things I'm about to read, but us, right? The whole Deuteronomy 28th chapter talks about everything our people only go through. Nobody else ever been through them but us. Read.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 15.
Read.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Is a curse a bad thing or a good thing? Bad thing, right? So God said he was going to curse the Israelites, the Jews, if they do not keep his commandments. Read.
Cursed shalt thou be in the city.
Drop that, give me 48. Give me 54.
Verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
Right? So do you think we serve our enemies? Alright, you say no. So the people who took our ancestors in slavery, would you consider them your enemies? Yes, right? So therefore they're your enemies. because those are your people, right? They're all of our enemies because they had our people in slavery, right? God called them our enemies. He said we're going to serve our enemies, right? I'm going to show you how we're serving them. Read.
Which the Lord shall send against thee.
And don't forget, brother, God sent them against us because of our wickedness, because we want to eat pork. We don't want to keep the Sabbath day holy. You know what the Sabbath day is? We're destroyed for a lack of knowledge, brother. But like I said, we don't want to keep the Sabbath day. We want to eat pork. We want to follow all these religions. We want to let our wife scream at us and tell us what to do in our household, right? Not be a true man of God, right? These are all curses given to us because we didn't want to obey God. It's not the white man's fault. He had no power. It's not anybody else's fault but our fault. We have to come back and keep God's commandments, brother. Key thing you have to do, keeping God's commandments. Read on.
In the hunger.
Right, so God said he's going to set our enemies against us in hunger, right? Where do we get our food from, brother? Where do you get your food from? Who owns those places? I'm sorry?
The government?
I can't hear you.
The government.
Government. Okay, the so-called white man, right? People who rule this world, right? Read.
And in thirst.
And in thirst, who we get our water from? Because we can't go to a natural spring in Florida, right? In Zephyrhills, we can't get it ourselves. Who do we get it from? Them too, right? Read.
And in nakedness.
And in nakedness. And all of our clothes we want. You got Adidas. That is not ours, right? We didn't make that. Read.
And in want of all things.
Everything we want, brother, we got to get it from them. Why? Because we're cursed for not keeping God's commandments, right? Read what you got.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 68.
Read.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
Now, brother, according to Exodus chapter 20, the definition of Egypt means bondage, slavery, right? I'm not going to get it, but I'm just letting you know. You can go back to it if you want, right? So when it's talking about Egypt, it's talking about slavery. Read.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Right, so it's prophesied, right? The real Jews, not the fake Jews, the real ones, right, are prophesied to go into slavery by ships in the latter days, right? When has those people ever been in their history in slavery by ships? Never. You never heard of it because it hasn't happened. Read.
By the way whereof I speak unto thee,
Right?
thou shalt not, thou shalt see it no more
Right.
again.
We're not going to see our homeland no more. You don't see no so-called Mexicans over there in Israel, right? You don't see no so-called blacks over there in Israel. Read.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
So he's saying in our slave land, right, we're going to be sold to our enemies, right? Read.
For bondmen
For slave man, read.
and bondwomen.
Slave woman, read.
And no man shall buy you.
No man is going to come and save us. Why? Because we're in sin. We're in transgression of the law. Give me Ezekiel 18:30. Read that, brother.
The book of Hosea, chapter 4 and verse 6.
Read.
My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge.
So God's saying, my people, the Israelites, the Jews, are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Why do you think we're destroyed, brother? For a lack of knowledge. What do we not know? We don't know that we're the real Jews the Bible talking about. We don't know that we're the chosen people of God. We don't know that we're going to rule this earth in righteousness. We're supposed to be ruling this earth in righteousness right now. But because of our wickedness, we are not, brother. We're in the slums, the ghettos, right? We're killing our people. We're selling drugs to our own people, right? Our wives don't obey us, right? All these curses are upon us, brother. We're destroyed for all this lack of knowledge. Read on.
Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee.
So, brother, listen. Taking this therefore, listen to this last thing. God said, because we don't want to listen to him, right? Because we reject his knowledge, he's going to what?
I will also reject thee.
God said he's going to reject us, brother, if we reject his knowledge, brother. So understand who you are, where you come from, and come back to acting like it, brother. You're the real Jew the Bible talks about. You have to come back to being righteous and come back to keeping God's commandments, brother. Read on.
That thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children.
Right, so everybody claiming to be God's people, right? Of our so-called Hispanic, Native American Indian, and black people, right? Claiming in these religions we're God's people, we're God's chosen people, but not keeping his law and teaching it, God's going to reject us because we have no knowledge. You don't know what you're doing. You claim you love God, but you don't even keep his laws. You claim you're Christ-like, but you don't keep his laws and God's laws. How are we of God when we don't keep his laws? When we don't do the things he said? It's like a child disobeying his father. Why do we disobey our father? We need to stop. We need to stop being gay. We need to stop being hoodlums.
Right.
We need to stop being thugs. All these things that these people taught us. We need to stop this stuff, man. Come back out of the wickedness, brothers and sisters. Read Ezekiel.
This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 18, verse 30. Therefore I will judge you, O house of Israel.
So I can read that again from you?
This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 18, verse 30.
Blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, the God is talking to you. The God from this Bible is only talking to you. He's dealing with you only. He's not dealing with nobody else. You're the chosen people of him. Read.
Therefore I will judge you.
Brother in the black shirt with dreads. Listen to his word, man. We got to come out of being thugs, man. This disobedience that we have for God is not good. We want to be thugs now. When we see war, we cry then. What are we going to do in the day of war? We're going to be screaming for God. And he's not going to hear nothing, bro. We got to come out of these wicked ways and come back to God. Read.
O house of Israel,
Read.
everyone according to his ways, saith the Lord God. Repent and turn yourself from all your transgressions.
Khan. Oye, hermana. ¿Qué pasó? Come over here. Come on. Damn, she don't speak English. Come on, hear God's word for a little bit. Come on, sis. You know I love you.
¿Cómo que anda con prisa? ¿Para dónde va?
Rápido, rápido.
¿A cocinar? ¿Cómo? Hoy es el día de Dios. No se puede cocinar hasta que el sol se vaya. Hoy es el día sagrado, el día que se tiene que dedicar a Dios hasta que la luz se caiga. Hasta mañana, así es. Dice él, trabaja 6